Hello, my name is Ilona, and in this video in my series of shadow work, I want to talk about feeling powerless. How do you handle that? Do you deal with that? So I already made my Dutch video, so I hope I'll remember everything I mentioned in that video, because usually I'm just in a flow. So we'll see how the flow will go in this video, but I just wanted to use the tarot cards as well, just to show more the psychological processes behind this. And I believe that feeling powerless is pretty much the, the complete issue with humanity. That we feel powerless, that we do not feel like we are in control, that we do not feel like we are the ones deciding everything in life. And of course, the dark energies purposely programmed us to feel powerless. They did this in everything, our political system, our medical system, our music, our videos, TV series. The entire programming is based on the fact that we don't have power and we need someone else to tell us what to do. We need things outside of ourselves to be happy. I truly believe this is a wound that happened when we kind of separated from the consciousness, although we are not separated. We are all children of God, but it felt to us we went our way to understanding ourselves more and becoming souls. And so we believed that we needed something outside of ourselves. I think the wound started there, and that, of course, everything, in our life now is all programmed for that. Like I said, you want to be happy, you need to get some clothing, you need to get a pill, you need to get this, you need to get... If you want to get, somewhere in life, you need a good education, you need this, you need that. It's all outside of yourself. And I think it has to do with that wound of feeling powerless, because ultimately we are souls, we are consciousness, we are children of God. So we don't really need anything outside of ourselves, but we don't remember that. We don't believe that. We believe we are powerless. So I just wanted to talk about that because I've mentioned I had my Finn, the dog. I was dog sitting and he was very sick and I felt so powerless. And of course I did the practical side, because in this video I'm going to talk about the more spiritual and more the emotional side. Of course, if you are in situations where you do feel powerless and there are things you can do, of course, practically do them. Like I went to the veterinarian because it was horrible with Finn. And of course I mentioned he's doing well now. But at that moment in time, I felt just so powerless, and it was quite difficult to deal with. But I've always felt powerless my entire life. I've also mentioned, of course, my binge eating disorder is going really well now, I have to say. I'm working with that. But that's also a sense of powerless, being powerless. And any addiction is a sign of that you're not in control. You don't control that substance. You don't control what you need. Maybe you are a workaholic. Maybe, drinking or gambling or doing other things. Anything that distracts you, that you don't have control over, is, of course, powerless. That you're powerless to control that. And really, it's throughout our life. Like I mentioned, in so many situations, I was growing up, I didn't want to go to school. I hated school. I was bullied. These are all situations I encountered also in my work situations were never good. And I always ended up outside of the group. I never fit in. I always felt this powerless need, like, how do I change this? So I do think for a lot of humanity, let's face it, just look around us in this world, feel powerless. And of course that creates situations that are powerless. That's what the dark energies want. They want us to feel powerless, because then they can use our power that we're not using ourselves, because we believe we are powerless. They can use it for their things and their agendas. That's why they keep us in this vibration and manipulation. So I really just wanted to take a look, how do you deal with powerlessness. How do you deal? And you can also see this as with frustration, anger, because usually it's associated with feeling powerless. That's why you get angry, because something's happening that doesn't feel right to you, or you're frustrated, or you get very fearful. You get scared that you're not going to make a situation, or you're not. There's so many ways that feeling powerless can affect someone, and I think a lot of emotions actually come from that as well. That you feel scared because you don't feel strong enough that you can handle a situation, or something's going to happen to you. And I just wanted to look at powerlessness in this video. So powerlessness, I just wanted to, like I mentioned, I'm going to use the tarot cards because they represent it so very well. Well, first of all, we have the Eight of Swords. This is about being powerless. You can see her completely with all these things around her, wrapped around her. She has a blindfold on. She doesn't know where she's going. She feels completely limited. But in essence, she's not. She can actually take this down very easily, take the blindfold off, and just walk away. And that's the essence of feeling powerless, is that you actually we have the power to change our lives, to manifest what we want, but we believe that we don't. We've been programmed that we don't. And like I said, the first wound felt like we lost something, and I think in essence we're still looking for it without realizing that we never lost it to begin with. So this is a very important card. I also want to mention, I also mentioned this in my Dutch video, that it's very important if you deal also with people that are in this victim mentality. And there are many people that actually live off that. It gives them a certain dominance. And a lot of people find this very strange. How do you mean dominance? Because, with dominant people see like aggressive people, try to force their will. But people that are in a way pathetic, so to speak, or very victim-like can be just as dominant. They're like, I can't do this anymore and I've worked so hard. Can you help me? Can you do this? They have this attitude. It kind of just sucks the energy right out of you. But especially when you're high sensitive, you want to help people. You have this wounded helper syndrome. You kind of jump into this and you try to help these people, but ultimately they're the ones deciding everything. So they are dominant by being, this mentality that they don't want to take any responsibility. Because ultimately, that's what it comes down to, taking responsibility. This is the card of not taking any responsibility. If you feel powerless at a very deep level, you don't want to take responsibility for really your life of what's going on. You just don't take that responsibility. You don't believe you can take that responsibility. And especially people that get a certain power from being powerless or being in this victim attitude, they don't have to take responsibility for anything. It's always someone else's fault. And they like to remain in that. So there's really nothing you can do. There is no help you can give that will get them out of this situation, because they want to stay in this situation. So it's very important to also see those people for who they are and what they are, and just kind of leave them alone. Of course, if it's family or loved ones, just take your distance, because they're just draining your energy. But essentially, if you feel powerless, you are not ready to take responsibility yet. You don't believe that you can. You feel that if you take this responsibility or take that it's going to be too much, you're going to be overwhelmed, you're not going to make it. This feeling of really not believing in your own power, not believing that you have that power. And it's very important, if you want to step into your strength, to realize you do. But I also wanted to show this card, because this is what the dark energies have been doing for so long, is keeping us in this position, the loser position, feeling like that there are bigger powers at hand and you're never going to win and you're not going to make it, and maybe you fight really hard, you're going to get somewhere, but you're never going to get where you truly want. You just have to accept what's now and what's there, and that's it. They purposely programmed that. Just look at TV series. There's Especially I've noticed in these detective series, police series, that there's always one win, but there's always a setback to it for some strange reason. Especially the British detectives, they all have these humongous problems and issues, and sometimes it turns out all right, but ultimately it's always the same thing, and that's the programming. Like, you're not going to get out of a situation. Maybe you work really hard, you get good education, or you might change things, but ultimately you always will be running behind this carrot that they're dangling in front of you, like, yeah, but if you're going to get that, then you're going to be happy. And they keep you occupied. They keep you in this position. So you always need something outside of yourself to be happy, to really create that life, or ultimately believing if you keep doing what they ask you to, you're going to make it. So powerless has to do with that. And feeling powerless is a very deep feeling. Like I said, I've noticed it in myself. I'm kind of carrying it around for a very long time. Past lives, I believe it's one of the ultimate wounds that started this, of course, entire experience as well, that we felt like we've missed something. We stepped away from this oneness and we believed that we were separated from it, and we're not. We are not separate from it. We are still part of it. We are still children of God. So what do you do if you feel powerless? And this is, of course, how I deal with it and how I look at it. Well, first of all, I'm going to take a step back. Very important, I've noticed. If I feel powerless, that of course, if I need to do practical things, I will do those. But because my first reaction is always to start analyzing things, to jump on top of it, but I've noticed that keeps me going in the same. I'm not healing the powerless inside of myself, that feeling of being powerless, because as long as I still carry that around in my energy, I'm going to create situations with feeling powerless. So I'm going to create certain people that make me feel powerless, or I'm going to create situations where I feel like I have no control because I carry that around with me. So the first thing I do now is to take a step back, especially also with, of course, if I feel like I want to eat, I take a step back first, start writing things down. This is my how I deal with things. And I just get a clearer picture of what is going on. What do I truly need? What do I truly feel? That's very important for me. Again, if I'm very angry or very frustrated about something, I first do something physical. Like I've mentioned, I've got a boxing ball here. So I'll use that because you need to get that out as well. So it's very important if you do feel very angry or very frustrated that you maybe go for a firm walk or maybe run if you do that, but do something that will keep that energy going, that you use that energy for something productive as well, and not just to lash out at other people or to turn inward, and then you can also get depressed as well if you try to repress it or suppress it in any way. So it depends, of course, if you feel very angry, frustrated, first go for a firm walk or boxing or something like that, something explosive. And then if it's, of course, possible with your physical condition, and then you can, of course, take a step back and start writing down what's going on. Then when I've got a more clearer picture, and it kind of depends if I'm really overwhelmed by feeling powerless, and feeling this feeling of being, not in control, I just go to this step right away. And that's feeling, where do I feel it in my body? Usually it's my solar plexus or my stomach, my lower stomach. I just feel this knot in there, cramping in there, and I just connect with that. I just feel through that. I've mentioned this before with Shadowwork, feeling through it because it wants to be felt, it wants to be healed. And feeling this powerlessness, just being powerless, it's just really, how do you say this? I've got a Dutch word in my head. I don't know, but just feel like you can't do anything, like you're stuck. Feel it without analyzing it. Just go to that where you feel it in your body and just make it bigger if that's possible for you. I usually do. I just feel it. So I'm not going to get completely sucked into that feeling, because then you can drag on and you can completely get in a head spin as well. And I don't start analyzing it. I just feel it. And especially when you're just starting, because a lot of us haven't been, we haven't been taught how to feel, just plainly feel. Take 5 minutes, do something very grounding afterwards. Very important when you work with emotions, feelings, to ground yourself. Just grounding in general is very important, but especially when you're doing something like that. So afterwards, you could go for a walk, or you could go outside in the garden with your feet. It's very important to touch the earth, to ground yourself, or just to be very aware of your body, or to eat something, do something very grounding afterwards. So see how that feels for you. Start with like 5 minutes if you're not used to it. And I've noticed myself, especially in the beginning, I had a lot of problems just surrendering to that feeling. So I kind of was just hanging above it, and it's really about feeling. Just surrender yourself to the feeling. And then afterwards, it depends on what started first. You can, of course, step back and write down and things like that. But it's important when you're feeling that you don't analyze it, because then you're in your head and you're not with that feeling, that emotion. And by doing that, you can start healing. And it will take time. It's a very deep wound. If I look at myself, it's a very deep wound for me. Maybe not for you, but feeling powerless is really, you can see that humanity is really struggling with that. Not being in control, not being the ones manifesting what they truly want. We are really in this great awakening and understanding our strength and understanding that we are capable of creating what we want. So it's very important to feel through that powerlessness, that feeling of being powerless. Because if you do that, you will heal. You will start healing yourself. This is temperance. This is about healing yourself. Then you finally will regain balance. And it will take time, and it layers, and some layers go really, really deep. So if you feel through it, take your time with that. So see for a few days, you may feel for 5 minutes, then you stop for a few days, then later on, you're like, oh, I'm feeling powerless again. Or maybe a situation comes up, especially situations in your life right now are actually a chance to heal. Anything that comes up, anything that's triggered is there to heal. So you could actually see it as opportunities. So if there's such a situation, you feel very powerless, you feel like, oh, I have no control here, you can use that situation to really see what's going on and feel, where in my body do I feel, and what kind of feeling is it? To me, it's like a cramp, like a knot in my stomach. So you feel through that, you will balance yourself. And by balancing yourself, you have the Magician card. You will start to gain your power back. Because when you feel through the powerlessness, or that feeling of being powerless, it will disappear from your energy. You will heal it. And by healing it, you will start attracting situations that fit with being in power, being in control, being able to manifest what you want. That's why it's so important to work with your energies, to work with your shadow work, because then you will be in control and be able to start, directing your life. Which way do I want to go? What do I want to create? Very important. What do I want to create? Which way do I want to go? And that's so important to deal with feelings like powerlessness, like feeling this, because especially when you start healing that, you will feel powerful again, because ultimately we just got all these filters around us, or felt, especially with the program, and we've already felt with this wound when we separated from consciousness, or at least we believed we separated from consciousness. We never did. We are children of God. We were never separated. But we felt that way. We started creating this feeling of powerlessness, this feeling that we needed something outside ourselves to become one again. And it's so important that by feeling through that feeling of powerlessness, we will heal it and we will become powerful again, because that's what we are. That filter will disappear. That filter that the dark energies obviously been working on to program us, we will leave behind, and we will start creating what we truly want, the life we truly want. And we can do so much, and we are so powerful, and that is part of the Great Awakening. I'd like to leave it at this and hope to see you in another video. Bye.